it's never going to be an excuse. It can never be an excuse. You can always do something.
It's discouraging. It's overwhelming. Just know where you're at. You can't destroy your own mental health. And then for most people too, it becomes their excuse.
Ah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that. Welcome to Root Cause for the Need Foundation's podcast, where we get at the root cause of homelessness and other issues. My name is Allie Myan, director of For the Need, and I'm joined here by Myan Spaccarelli, one of our founders of For the Need Foundation, and we're excited to get into the topic of today, which is how doomed are we? And especially as it relates to homelessness.
Don't turn it off. How doomed are we?
Yeah.
On a scale of 1 to 10.
Right. Yeah. On a scale of 1 to 10, how doomed are we? But more so in the next, 20 years, 30 years, are we going to be able to completely eliminate the issue of homelessness? Or is it going to get worse? What are your thoughts on this topic?
That's funny. Well, it's, the older I get, the more doomed we feel. But that's every generation since biblical times.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to radio classics. Back in the old days, they didn't have TVs. I'm not that old, but they used to listen to these radio shows. And on the satellite radio, there's a channel just for those. And if you got to go a long way, it's actually kind of entertaining. The Shadow and Mystery Theater and all sorts of stuff. But, they'll play newsreels and they'll play commercials, and then you'll hear stories back in time. And even old songs said, this generation, is doomed and blah, blah, blah. That's 50, 60, 70 years ago that they were convinced that that generation was totally doomed. So, I fight that thought because as often as we've predicted it, even your husband Matthew has said, like, dude, they've been saying that since the beginning of time, and humans have figured it out, and we've made it through.
Yeah, it does seem like the natural inclination of people right now, especially on the older side, is to think things are going downhill. AI is taking all our jobs. And these are things I hear from people I know, things you've even thought, like, should we start considering this? And it makes you wonder, okay, are these things really going to take over? But then at the same time, even if they are, or say, like climate change was a huge thing, about 5 years ago. And even now,
it is right now because it's 98 degrees and we're just getting out of winter. So it's top of mind. But yeah, like you said, it's faded. It isn't.
It's not as top of mind as it was like 5 years ago. But I mean, the climate is still changing.
Every election cycle, it's mega top of mind. We're going to die in a certain amount of years. So the election cycle definitely pumps up different narratives, especially on slow news days. But we're not talking about shark attacks.
Yeah.
Because believe me, somebody's going to get bit by a shark, and then every week or plane crashes that has a cycle. Rottweiler bites. Those cycles come in, and we're like, yeah, we haven't heard a Rottweiler story in a while. And then you'll hear one, and then you'll hear 10.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So it makes me think, what are we paying attention to right now? There is this crisis of homelessness. There's also the climate change. You could list out 100 different crises that are on the precipice, such as the AI takeover of white-collar jobs. But it makes...
Did you say the AI? Because that's how an old person would say.
The AI takeover?
I turned on the internet. The AI. Yeah.
Yeah, just like as an object, the idea of that being something that's at the forefront of our minds.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to reiterate that thought, like it's important to think about what is top of mind right now. You could consider the homeless crisis, you consider climate change crisis, the AI taking over white collar jobs, future crisis. All these different ideas can get into our heads and can make us feel the world is looking bleak. People are losing their jobs. It's a dire outlook. But we have a choice of what we choose to focus on. And even with possible doom in quotes coming our way, we can still choose to make the most out of every minute we have, to absolutely put our best foot forward no matter what is coming, to
We
trust.
could play the violin as the ship is sinking. Is that
Yeah.
what I don't think you're saying that, but like,
Not necessarily, no, because you can still take action while also having a more hopeful look on things. And you can still choose to focus on the good that is in the world. Because even with the crisis of homelessness in California and the country, there are negative things happening. Obviously, the people that are experiencing the hardship, they're literally living that hardship. But then you also see nonprofits and other organizations losing funding from the government specifically and other issues. But when it comes,
dogs and cats living together,
yeah,
mass hysteria,
yeah, you could start focusing on all of that
right?
and think about those things. Or you could be like what we're doing at For the Need, where we're like, you know what, we're not going to worry about the national, international crisis overarching. We're just going to focus on Grace
Yeah.
or Alan or the next kid that's in our program who we want to see succeed and be loved and their life change. And I do believe you can still hold both of those things together, that like, yes, the world has some uncertainties ahead, but at the same time, there's a lot of really good things in the world and really great people with really great hearts to do more good. And we can be part of that action regardless of what is coming. That's what I think about the doomed outlook,
Yeah.
in quotes. I don't really think we're doomed. And I'm curious how you would respond to that. What do you think?
Well, first off, it's an interesting dynamic between the two of us because I'm your dad. You're also the director of our foundation and all this sort of stuff. But hearing you talk, it always makes me feel so proud of your outlook because I hear a lot of health. Like you have a healthy perspective. You're like, hey, it could be doomsday. It could, whatever. We're doing these things, and that's what a parent would want for their kid. How you want them to feel. Um, it's hard because you still have this protective side that you want to focus in on these bad things that we see coming in, but not to the point where just that focus on it ends up deteriorating your own health.
Yeah.
So maybe those things are going to come, but if you totally focus on those, you will definitely destroy your health and your well-being. So it's kind of hard to balance all that out. And to me, it's like there's different perspectives. There's the step back from 10,000 feet looking at the whole thing perspective. Then there's a little bit more, what are some of these other things that we see eye level? And then there's like micro, what am I doing today about those? And I really like your step back thought, and I feel the same way because it's funny when you read the Bible or history, so much of this stuff repeats itself, and it seems like there's trajectories. You're either things are going down or they're going up. And for most people, if not all the people of the earth, you're riding that time and there's nothing you can do about it. So
Globally. Yeah.
what I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like destiny's not in our hands, and there is a global destiny. There's global warming. I mean, look at the dinosaurs. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing they could have done,
Yeah.
to prevent their fate. There's different wars. There's different culture. I mean, culture is so set in stone, and when it takes a turn and it starts to do something, like I said, there's very few people. You're I don't want to say a victim of the circumstances, but things are going to happen regardless. But the Bible was clear through all of those times: love your neighbor, do what is right. Continue to do good things. God was always telling people go. Like he was not telling them to sit idly as bad things were happening. There was very few commands to stay, and there's thousands of commands to go. And so, to me, that's regardless of that global outlook, that's what keeps us healthy.
Wow. Even with the global outlook, we can still go. We can still go and we can still make a difference and love on individual kids and our neighbors. Absolutely. Regardless of your beliefs, there's always something you can do locally. I 100% agree.
A great example is, everything that's happening with Iran. You could focus in with the news, and you should be informed and all sorts of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the other day we were down at the shelters, and we were planting flowers with our one of our directors, John, who is just so tied into the community there. And this is the Mark Twain facility that is housing some of the most, mentally ill and disabled and people really struggling with things. And there's at least 10, 12 people back there digging, and we dug a hole, and then a rat ran out, and everybody was startled. And John had bought all these beautiful flowers, and we're all digging and working and laughing. And some of the guys down there are just talking to themselves. And one person's talking to Allie, and Allie goes, "Hey Dad, did you hear so and so this and this?" And I go, "Allie, I'm pretty sure she's schizophrenic." And a lot of those things just might be in her own imagination. But we had a great day, and it's not like we ignore the problems of the world, but like for our own health and well-being, there was nothing better, and yeah. So.
Yeah, it was so great to be at a place and be planting this garden in a place where that little hope can mean so much to them. But at the same time, before we put the flowers in the ground, they were telling us about how they had already planted a garden and it got completely destroyed by rats. And so, of course, me and you, we were like, well, what's the plan to not have rats destroy this garden? We're thinking that. And I think at one point we each asked like, hey, like, are we going to put up like netting or like rat, like something to capture them, to take them somewhere else? Or like, is there any plan for that? And we're just kind of like, ultimately it came down to, we're just here to help plant this garden. We're not here to ask questions. And it's kind of an analogy for like what you were saying about the global direction. Like the global direction of that garden is it's probably going to get destroyed by rats. But we were still able to enjoy the process of putting the plants. We were able to connect with the other people and make a difference and have this garden for the time being. And maybe it won't get destroyed by rats. And I don't know.
I don't like your analogy at all.
No? Okay.
No, not at all. Because when you could do something, I mean, there's definitely, that's like, hey, throw caution to the wind. Let's, go outside in the hot sun and not put suntan lotion on and burn up, or whatever. It's like throw caution to the wind. John told us, hey, that's a problem for another. His plan was to get them working, moving, enjoying what they were doing, and he succeeded at that. And then he has a plan B with the garden beds, the raised garden beds, that they're going to dig all the dirt out. But he wanted them to have a sense of accomplishment before they got to the real hard work. So he had a plan.
Okay.
And it was funny because me and Allie, yes, we were the workers, but we're like, hey, what's the plan? And John's like, that's not for today. Just dig. And it was an enjoyable time. And the other thing too, it's really important to get them to participate, the people that are there.
Yeah.
And they all participated in one way or the other, and it was super great. And yeah. So, I mean, there's a...
Maybe we'll cut that part out. Me saying that's an analogy.
No, I mean, it's fine. To me, this is what podcasts are about. You think about it one way and, it's like...
Yeah, as I was saying it, I was thinking, well, I really don't want this to be our outlook that like, oh, the world's just going to get destroyed by rats or like, the doom crises coming.
Yeah.
Like, those aren't really the rats like that may or may not happen. But I also do believe you can make a difference. Like even with that situation, like we could have, we trust that they are going to have another plan to prevent the rats in the future. But just like in regular life, we could have a plan. Like, I mean, the civil rights movement is a really good example of this. There was like women couldn't vote and a ton of other issues. And the way the world was going, like you could argue it was going to continue that way, but then people decided to get together and form a movement and make a difference. on a grander scale. So there are people who do participate in that grand scale of social and cultural change that leads to policy change ultimately. But at the same time, there were people living in, like, say, Louisiana or like some other random place who were still making the choice day to day to love their neighbor, regardless of the color of their skin. And even while they're waiting for the policy to change for everybody, they can still make those decisions day to day. So maybe that's more.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And, going back to like you have the 100,000 foot elevation and you look at the world and you see something bad coming. Yes, there are people that go, hey, I'm going to really try to do something about this major, major thing. And what I think is that when you are blessed, when you're given so much and you're in a position that you can build this enormous boat, that your vision and your view and your ability, has that strength to take on, then by all means, that's a blessed position. A lot of us that will destroy us if we say, hey, we're going to look at the scope of the biggest problem, and you wake up every morning feeling like you're peeing in the ocean. You have not done, and it's discouraging, it's overwhelming, and it's not for everybody. So I'm not saying that you should bury your head in the sand or whatever, but just know where you're at. You can't destroy your own mental health. And then for most people too, it becomes their excuse. It's like, hey, there's so much to do. It's so that I don't know what to do. And so to me, it's always very easy that no matter what our outtake is on this doomsday prediction, we're still supposed to love our neighbor. We were loving our neighbor the other day. It charged our batteries. Here we are today, excited, talking about it. I don't feel doom and gloom. It's kind of overwhelming what's happening around the world right now and things like that. But I feel pretty healthy and strong. And I think that has something to do with my upbringing, some other things, but it also has to do with what we do on a regular basis.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Even though you might think someone could think of the doom and such, it's never going to be an excuse. It can never be an excuse because you can always do something. And so I think if there's any other comments you'd like to add before we end, let me know.
Well, I just love what you said right there, because that's part of our philosophy at our events, where it's so great because sometimes we'll have less volunteers than we want, and we'll take some of the older kids and we'll be like, hey, help, we're building these rockets. And we grab some of the older kids and I'm like, hey, help these other kids. They leave so satisfied. They leave feeling so empowered, so much sense of worth and stuff like that. And, their outlook on a daily basis is pretty gloomy. Like a lot of these situations that they don't know where they're going to live. A lot of times their guardians are very unhealthy. It's so hard when you hear them talking about this kind of thing. So for as much as we are thinking about the world being doom and gloom, maybe, but for a lot of the individuals that are dealing with homelessness, the youngsters, as my dad calls them,
the youngsters,
and now I am too, the youngsters, it's great to see your philosophy being imparted on just what you said at the beginning of this podcast. Like it just, I don't know, it gives me goosebumps to hear that, because I know that's what you're impressing on the young lives that you're influencing and
that we're influencing.
Yeah, I know.
Our mentors.
Yeah. Well, it's a culture thing, and you're creating a culture where that's our mindset, and I just love it.
Ah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that. It is so great to be part of For the Need, where regardless of what's happening in the world, politically or in any way, we are there to build a rocket or to see some reptiles or to have some fun, to make some memories, and to build hope and confidence and character in the next generation. And it's been awesome to see that, and it's been working, and it's really cool. And that is the end of our show today.
All right.
So thank you so much, everyone, for listening in and watching at home. We are For the Need Foundation, and this has been Root Cause with Allie and Myan.
If there is a tomorrow, we hope to see you tomorrow.
Yes. See you next time, God willing. Bye.